Cheap versus expensive. We get these questions all the time. What's the true difference between your price point entry-level bow and your high-end flagship bow? Well, we've got JR and Brian in our tuning room in the back, and we're gonna head back there and get their expert opinion and answer all those questions for you guys as to what the true difference is between your price point budget bow and your high-end flagship bow. So let's go.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is JR. We got a good friend Brian here. He just got his brand new PSE Mach 30 set up. But what we're doing today on this video is we're going to be kind of comparing a cheap bow, the Diamond Edge 320 or Pro 320. Sorry, we got that right here, versus his PSE Mach 30 that we got set up. So, what is a flagship bow, Brian?
So, a flagship bow is a major manufacturer's top of the line. Okay, that is the absolute best thing that they put out for that year. Keep in mind when you talk about flagship bows, you're looking at just a bare bow.
Correct.
That is bow, limbs, strings. There's no accessories whatsoever on it.
Yep. So most times with our cheap bows or our budget bows, as we like to call them, it's a package bow. So it comes with everything you need ready to shoot. So you can get it set up and go take it out right away and start shooting.
Okay. So with a flagship bow, the best side or the better side of that to me is I can accessorize it the way I want. Okay, so I can get different color options. I can go with the slate gray. I went with the bottomland because if I drop this thing, I want to be able to lose it. Okay, I want to blend right in. Okay, it's also got different axle to axle options. It's got different poundage. I can put anything I want on this. Okay, I'm literally customizing it. I'm pimping out my Barbie Jeep.
Yep.
You know.
And also with that too, caveat to that is with your limb options. So that's going to control your draw weight. So most times a flagship bow or high-end bow, you're only going to be able to have about 10 pounds of adjustability into those limbs. But a lot of times you can go anywhere from almost 40 pounds all the way up to 80-pound options as well. So you do have that option.
When you're looking at buying a new bow, what's the biggest hurdle for you?
I would say the biggest thing for that is budget. So
sure.
Having a budget in mind of what you want to spend, that's where you can really kind of fine tune, or like for us, we can really cater to a lot of customers if they come in with a budget. So most times with this kind of bow right here, you're looking at about $600 for the bow, whereas with that flagship bow, you're looking for his bow, for the whole build out, we're looking at $3 grand. If you go with an aluminum flagship bow, you're looking at only about $1,200 for the bow. And then most of the carbon bows are right around $2 grand for them. Yep. And then going from there as well, so the materials that they're made out of. So like this riser is made out of like a magnesium kind of composite material. So it's still a good material. It's just not as good as like his hand-laid carbon riser from PSE. So all that stuff's also made in America as well. So that's another aspect that you can look at. That's going to just compound that cost.
So looking at your sight, what kind of sight is on your budget bow?
Yep, so this one is, there's nothing, the biggest thing with that is going to be the micro adjustability once you get to more of those higher end ones. This one, if you need to make adjustments, you have to have Allen keys, and you've got to be really careful with your tuning of them, moving everything up. Also with that is your adjustability for your axes to make sure everything is leveled correctly. This one, you can't change anything on that one, but on Brian's over there, you can actually adjust your axes to make sure everything is leveled. So that is very important for, especially if you're taking, if you're up in a tree stand and you're making those very angled shots, you want to make sure all of your axes, your first, second, third axis are adjusted correctly. Otherwise, that can throw your shot way off.
Okay, so what about durability? So this Excel sight is machined aluminum. It's a little bit more robust for areas that I'd like to go in. What is on the budget?
Yep, so this one, it does have an aluminum bracket. That main bracket housing is nice with that, but there is a lot of plastic on the actual scope itself. There's a lot of plastic there. So you do have the possibility of breaking it kind of easier sometimes.
Moving on from there, next thing down is, I would say, the rest.
Yep.
Right, I'm running an Hamskea Epsilon drop away rest. It's limb driven, so it's always going to work. Right, this is probably one of the beefiest sights or rests, sorry, that are on the market. It's basically indestructible. Yes. And what are we running on the Diamond?
Yep. So this is just a standard whisker biscuit. It's just a full containment bristle system that holds that arrow there. So that's one thing you have to look with there is over time you can wear those bristles out, so you have to replace that. And also another option, like with his rest, is sorry, Bo keeps wanting to follow me. The adjustability of it. So that one actually has a micro adjust on it Whereas this one, it's the same thing. If you need to make those adjustments, you have to unlock an Allen screw, and you've got to barely move it. So.
Sure. So that's all manual. You have to move it by hand. You're taking an Allen screw, loosening it, and moving it to where you think is right. Whereas I can just take and do micro adjustments on this to get it tuned perfectly.
Yes.
Quivers. Okay. You've got what appears to be a carbon quiver on there, or carbon rods.
Yeah, it's got carbon rods on it. But everything else is just a cheaper made plastic. It's just like an ABS plastic. So, I mean, really, you shouldn't have too much to worry about that. Some people do say that they buy a flagship bow and they'll go out and buy a cheap quiver. That's just totally on you, and kind of also sticking with that budget if you have one.
That just goes into you building out your stuff, right? If you want to upgrade that, you absolutely can. There's a million options. I want to get this thing with, it's a 30-inch axle-to-axle bow. I want to bring it in as close as I can, so I went with the tight spot quiver, which just added to the cost. But I knew what I was getting into when I was doing this, because this is something that I enjoy doing. It's something I do literally every single day. All right, also with the tight spot quiver, I can adjust for different arrow diameters. So if I want to run a 4 mil, I just run it into the 4 mil slot. I have complete adjustability. I can move it as far away from the bow or as close to the bow as it'll allow me to do. And it's got a carbon shaft, so I can move it up and down. You have limited mobility with that.
Right.
I can move this literally all over the bow. If I want to drag my fletchings in the ground, I can drop it all the way down and do that.
Correct. Yep. And this one, you can't do any of that. You can a little bit. You can move, like this one, for instance, you can move it out a little bit, but not nearly as adjustable as that quiver is.
Yeah. If you look at the inside of the arrow retention teeth on this, there's actually 3 different levels. So you can run a 4 mil, a 5 mil, or the standard 6.5, where that would primarily be as a good 6.5 because it's a single hole for the arrow, essentially. All right, moving down, stabilizer. Do you have one?
Yes. So it is considered a stabilizer, but this honestly is more just for vibration reduction. This is just mainly made out of a rubber material, whereas yours is actually on an aluminum shaft with end caps on there, where you can actually adjust also adding weight or taking away weight. This one is mainly just for, like I said, vibration reduction.
Sure. So this is going to take the balance of the bow and drop it a little bit lower. For me, I can extend it. I just went with the standard 8-inch bar because that's what I prefer, and I can adjust the weights on this. It's also got some rubber dampening on here as well, same as the entire one that you have.
Yep. And then also with the stabilizer as well, you can get different lengths. So most times you can get anywhere from 6 inches all the way up to 15 is what most people use for hunting.
Right.
So,
let's move into performance.
So for instance, this bow is so adjustable. It's basically made that way so it'll fit anybody on the market. It'll go from 19 inches of draw all the way up to 31, whereas yours isn't as adjustable with that. It's not really necessarily going to change your performance as much. It's just going to be more suited for each person.
Right. So as far as adjustability to the shooter, I would almost say that this has more options than the flagship bow. Okay, so take that into consideration too. I mean, if you're just now getting into something, getting into this sport, that's going to have the adjustability that you can grow into.
Correct.
Okay, so tunability, right? We know that from the previous videos that I've seen that you want your rest 13/16 off the riser, right? With a whisker biscuit, that's relatively easy, right? But if I'm not getting that perfect tear through paper at relatively close distances, I'm able to shim my cams to where I can get that perfect tear. So that's where tunability kind of comes in for me. I want that perfect arrow flight. I want it to come off of the string as straight as possible to give my fletchings the easiest job as it can, right? So can I do that with this? I'm just moving the rest.
You just have to move the rest. So that's one downside to a lot of these cheaper bows.
So can I, just moving the rest, is it going to throw everything off?
It will.
Okay, perfect. So that's where the flagship kind of will take a giant leap forward over the budget bow build, right? The tunability of this, getting that arrow to come perfectly straight. And as you get further distances, those small imperfections will only increase as you get 30, 40, 50, 60 yards. That small inconsistency at paper tuning is going to be where you could miss a target.
Correct.
Right? Yep. Or not get a good kill on that.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. So let's look at speeds next, right? So IBO speed on this thing is 338, yep. Right? And that's at 30 inches of draw length with 350 grain arrow. That's how all IBO speeds are rated. And what do we have on the
This
budget?
one is rated for 320. So that's where a lot of times your flagship bows are going to be rated for higher speeds than the budget entry-level bows are.
Because the cam on this is not as aggressive, not the performance isn't as great, right?
Right.
So as you have, so 338 to 320, as you start drawing down that draw length, that is going to increase rapidly, where this is going to fall off in this, the flagship bow, maybe not so much.
Right.
That's also another thing you want to look at, like speed, where you want to be, how fast you want to shoot. Arrow weight's going to play a huge component into that. If you want to go down the heavy arrow rabbit hole, the flagship bow is going to be easier to get the speeds and distances that you want, right?
Yep. And more efficiently.
Efficiently, perfect. That's actually the best word for it. Is the flagship bows are going to be a lot more efficient, okay? And with that, moving with that efficiency is going right into shootability, right? So the shootability experience for you is how well you're going to be able to complement this bow, right? So will the consumer? This is obviously with the adjustability from 19, you said, to 30.
31.
Okay. Will you outshoot this bow?
I feel like over time you would.
Okay, so with, and I've been down that road, that's the only reason I asked, because that's the way that I felt. Okay, I started with a budget bow build. I got in for $600 and it was ready to go, and I started shooting, and then it was tuned as best as it could get, right? But I felt like I could shoot better than that. And then I got a flagship bow in my hand, and it was just the consistency, the shootability, the experience for me was better. Just the attention to detail and everything that went into that flagship bow really made the shootability that much better, made it a better experience for me.
Yep, absolutely. And that's going to be for, I think, anybody too. So as long as, if it's something that you're enjoying doing, over time you're going to end up outgrowing it and wanting something better. And that's how a lot of people end up.
And that, I guess, the shootability runs right into our next segment, would be adjustability.
Yep.
Right? How easy is it to adjust that? Can just anybody adjust that bow?
Yes, absolutely. So everything's all on a mod system. That's going to be basically all the bows now for your draw length. It's going to be on a module system. It's a rotating mod down here on the cam. They're all normally half-inch draw length increments. Sometimes on those budget bows, it can be a 1-inch increment.
Sure.
Whereas now with the flagship bows, a lot of them even have 1/4-inch draw length adjustments this year. So, it can be a lot more adjustable on that flagship bow than the budget bow, but a lot of times they're very similar.
Very similar. Now, is this anything that you have to have a bow tech for, or a press, or anything like that? Okay, so those hand in hand are almost exactly the same. I can adjust draw length on the fly with just a couple tools.
Yep.
Right?
Generally, though, the budget bow is going to be a little bit more adjustable, especially for the draw length ranges and the draw weight ranges. And that's all for the draw weight is just controlled by a limb bolt up on the top and bottom. Just make sure you do even turns on both.
And the draw weight on that is actually a lot more vast than it is on the flagship bow, right?
Right.
So say you're coming off of an injury and you need to let your poundage weigh down. I can only go down 10 pounds on this.
Yeah, roughly.
Right? Roughly 10 pounds, and where that has
50 pounds.
50 pounds of adjustment. Okay, so that's another thing you need to look at. The adjustability. If you're just getting into this, do you want to, sell a boat to pay for this flagship bow that you can't pull back?
Right.
And that's not something that you just go into,
right.
Being able to draw 70 pounds, unless you're just built a very special way. Mm-hmm. So the budget bows definitely have a lot to offer with that. We're not calling them cheap bows, budget bows, whatever you want to call. Everybody's got to start somewhere.
Yep.
Right?
100%.
And it's all based on budget and what you're looking for, where you're shooting, what you're shooting, where you're going to be, and it's going to change from person to person. You shoot a different setup than I shoot, even though we want to shoot the same bow. Your setup is wildly different than mine, but from stabilizers to sights to rests. Yep. And that's what the flagship bow really offers to me is that customization, build your own. Everything is exactly the way I want it. Mm-hmm. Been doing this for a long time and I love it, and that's why I decided to go with the flagship bow.
Oh yeah, 100%. All right, guys. Well, in summary, so we've basically gone over the cheap budget bow versus the high end. We've gone over the cost of them, the materials, all the accessory options you have with them, the performance of them. Hope you guys enjoyed it. You got anything to add, Brian?
No, that's it. I think we covered from tip to butt.
Yeah.
You know, so guys, thanks for tuning in.
Yep. As always, we appreciate you guys watching. Stay tuned for future videos. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Check out all of our socials. We'll have all that stuff down below, and we'll catch you guys in the next video.
See you later.